Hey, welcome into Sports Map. I'm Brandon Strange, and I'm joined by Lance Zierlein. Today I get to play the part of John Granato because he's out. So I don't know how to unveil the next part of my John Granato impression, but it's got to be something like this, and I kind of lean in.
Yeah.
Make sure you click like on this video, hit subscribe on the channel. We do appreciate all the support. Lance, I have you, so I'm going to talk some football. Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback column featuring some quotes from Lovie Smith. So Lovie says, he starts out by saying, I think we have a good quarterback. We have the third pick in the draft. There's a possibility we could get a great quarterback. So obviously we have to read between the lines here. Do you think Lovie was being a little purposeful and being vague there and trying to make people question what he meant in that moment?
I think what he did was just start up the process of creating uncertainty with a top 5 pick, usually really a top 3 pick. This is pretty standard operating procedure. There's no special quarterbacks in the top 3. So, he could have been keeping hope alive for Aaron Rodgers or maybe not Jimmy Garoppolo so much. And we know Tom Brady is done. But, maybe he was just – my guess is that he wanted to basically posture that the Texans could take a quarterback. Because that's what you start doing at this time. You make people believe that no matter who you are, you could end up taking a quarterback because you want people to jump up and trade up for your pick. I think that's what Lovie was doing. I don't think it was serious. I think Davis Mills is the guy they will go with this year. I think it's nothing more than a ploy to start trying to plant seeds to create some doubt about what the Texans may do at the third pick so that if there's a team who really likes quarterback, they may get nervous about someone else jumping up to 3 to get quarterback. The thing is, I don't think you can bluff with this year's class. I know this quarterback class too well, and there's nobody that feels like a transcendent type of franchise changer and franchise quarterback. So I think it's standard operating procedure from Lovie, making you think, hey, you never know. We think we can get a really good quarterback. Yeah, but more than likely you're not going to, and you're just trying to plant seeds so that someone will trade up for your pick. More than likely that's what Lovie was doing.
I agree, and I wonder if it goes even beyond just that real surface level of we might pick someone at 3. I think there's a lot of speculation that the Texans will trade back, a lot of which has come out on our channel here. But I wonder if what you're saying is, there's not a big high-level quarterback that's, going to be taken early in the draft. I wonder if he's counting on that too, where he's saying, like, even if we trade back and we get more picks, that might make us more froggy. Could you see them doing something like that? Or again, do you think that's just more posturing?
No, I think that the Texans, if Nick Caserio plays it right, he should be trying to move back as often as possible. This should be an exercise in adding as many core players as you can possibly find in this draft. Now, that becomes a question, is this draft deep enough to have a true core player, a true blue chip player, gold player, however the Texans designate it? You could probably get one at pick number 3, so they might sit still. But, I think you might be able to get one at pick number 7, pick number 8. So the Texans may still be able to move back and be involved. I don't think quarterback is going to be in their future this year. I think a veteran will be added, somebody who is a safe veteran, not somebody who's going to press Davis Mills for playing time or that the fans are going to clamor for. But I do think that the Texans this year, last year Nick Caserio was unusually active, moving around and upwards to target some players. This year, I think they could be active in moving backwards and amassing picks, something that we saw New England do from frequently, frankly, when he was there with Bill Belichick.
It is interesting to see Lovie play a psychological game because we're not quite used to seeing that in contrast to David Culley. So that is a change for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to clear this up. When he says we could get a great quarterback, he's not talking about Deshaun Watson, right? He's not talking. No. He doesn't think Deshaun Watson.
Texans are done with Deshaun, right, and Deshaun's done with the Texans.
Okay. Okay, but let's talk about that comment about we have a good quarterback, because that sounds like, I think, a very realistic evaluation of Davis Mills. He's not saying he's our guy. But I have to ask you this, given your evaluation of the QBs that are at the top of this draft, or at least in the first round, because I think you have 3 going in the first round, where does Davis Mills rank in proportion to the guys that are at the top end of the draft or that will be drafted higher in the draft?
I think from a standpoint now, the players now have not played at all, so there is no There's no real downside yet to their play. You can't adjust them downwardly. You can only project them at their what's their pinnacle. I think Davis Mills would be what we call a 62, which is a chance to be an average NFL starter this year. Right now, my grades are higher for 4 of the guys who are above him. But realistically, if you ask me who would I rather have, Davis Mills or Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, I'd probably say Mills. If you ask me between him and Malik Willis from Liberty, listen, Malik Willis has, to me, a little higher upside, but honestly, the safer pick would probably be Davis Mills. So Davis Mills, relative to this draft class, had he gone back to school and played well at Stanford, I think we'd be talking about Davis Mills right in the middle of this draft class. I think he would have been drafted inside of the first 50 picks. So in a way, he came out early, may have cost himself a little bit of money. But I think there's also a chance that he found the perfect scenario because he's going to be given a legitimate runway to become an NFL starter, and with a fan base, frankly, that is going to be more than patient with him, because what's the alternative? Like, it's not like you have a bunch of great players on the roster. You're not missing out on some championship caliber run like the Pittsburgh Steelers or Indianapolis Colts might if you're a young quarterback going there. So in an ironic twist, Davis Mills coming out early may have cost him a round of being drafted, but it also may have put him in the best position to succeed in the future.
And I guess it also puts Lovie in the best position to succeed, because Lovie's not getting a green quarterback that's right out of the draft, that's right out of college and doesn't have any pro reps. He got some really important experience last season. How does that play into his development this year?
Well, I think it's important to note 2 things. Number one, you're right. There's no substitute for NFL experience. You have to go through it. And then he was benched when Tyrod Taylor came back. And then when he came back, because Tyrod was ineffective, Davis Mills was much better actually when he came back, and I think internalized some of the lessons he learned from watching tape, from watching from the sideline, from being in games. But let's remember, Davis has really played basically 2 years of starting football. One in college, it turned out to be about 11 games in college, and then however many he started last year, in the neighborhood of, 8 or 9 starts, I think, last year. So he still really hasn't played a lot of football. He still is green, actually. It may not feel like it, but he hasn't played nearly as much football as Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder's been a 4-year starter, played over, 48, 50 games of football. He started. Right now, Davis Mills has started half that amount. So I think it's important to remember he's still at the earlier timeline of where his development is going to be. So, yeah, Lovie gets a guy who is no longer green. He does still have, he has some reps underneath him, but it is important for fans to recognize Davis Mills is still very much in a developmental stage.
Indeed, and I think one feather that maybe it's not a feather in Nick Caserio's cap, but it's something to keep in mind, though, is that I think long-term, and tell me if you agree with this, long-term, this isn't going to be remembered as the awful pick that I think many projected it at when it happened initially. I think a lot of people questioned, why are you taking a QB in the 3rd round with your very first pick in that draft? And I think, given Davis Mills' development, or at least what we've seen in his first season, even if he doesn't pan out to be a starting quarterback, I don't think this is going to be looked back on as the egregious decision that many thought it was.
No, I think the only way you take that hit is if one of these quarterbacks turn out to be an absolute star. That's the only way people would hit that, because at number 3, you're going to be able to take the first quarterback. You're going to be able to select the first quarterback, and chances are you're not going to see it coming anyway. No one's got a top 3 grade on any of these players. The only way they end up taking slack is if you are able to say, wow, you drafted Davis and decided to roll with Davis Mills when you ended up having Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis or the great Matt Corral, as your starting quarterback. That's the only way people can complain about that, because unless those guys turn out to be stars, any one of those guys, if none of them turn out to be stars, I don't really see how you could complain about the pick. At the time, I complained about it, but realistically, when you move forward, my biggest problem was you were limiting your chance to potentially draft a quarterback in 2022. Now the 2022 draft is upon us, or at least the process is. It doesn't look like any of these quarterbacks are worth the 3rd pick anyway, so no harm, no foul.
What's the likelihood in your projection that the Texans are picking high again in the 2023 draft?
Likely.